Hello, I'm Benny Westside, and I'm very excited because today I have a really special guest. Matt, thank you for coming.
Of course, thanks for inviting me.
I'm very happy that I get to do this with you. So before we dive on in and reveal my favorite Spider-Man, I want to ask you who your favorite Spider-Man is.
Yeah, definitely my favorite Spider-Man was always Peter Parker, OG Peter Parker, but with the black symbiote suit. When I
Oh,
first read those comics back in the day, like angsty teenager, definitely loved that run.
got it. So none of the dancing with Tobey
Yeah,
Maguire.
not quite the dancing. Hold on, Cece. My dog, for some reason, really wants to get in on this recording. Okay, if you want, we can re-record,
No,
or you
that's
can.
fine. Your
Okay.
dog's excited too. Um,
Yeah.
well, maybe the outfit gives it away, but my favorite Spider-Man is Jake Johnson's Peter v. Spider-Man, or Peter v. Parker. And I was so happy to find out that he's actually coming to the game. Um, would you tell us about him or his team? Anything you're able to, give us?
Yeah, I'm really excited to get Peter B. Parker in the game. When we were looking at doing this team that was, tied with Across the Spider Verse, I really wanted to get Peter B. Parker. Even when we first did, the very first iteration when the first movie came out and we released Miles and our Green Goblin, Peter B. Parker was like on that list of like characters I loved. I feel like he's a very fresh take to the OG Spider-Man, and with this movie, like Mayday is such a great character. Like she's fun in every single scene, and it really changes the dynamic, but keeps the core who Peter Parker is. And so when we got this approved with everyone talked with Marvel, they're like, I want to put Mayday in the game. And everyone's like, you can't beat up a baby. And I'm like, 100%. I agree. Mayday, at the end of his turn, will swing away. And so you'll be fighting and beating up Peter B. Parker. And then on his turn, she swings back. So it was a lot of work getting her working and set up in the game. I think fans are really going to love how she looks.
Oh wow, that's awesome. So it's kind of going to be like the gliders and the surfboards that we've seen. They come on the
Yeah,
turn and then they leave.
yeah, I think the one that has the character that really solidifies is like Loki teen with the Gator. On his turn, he summons the Gator, and then at the end of his turn, the Gator teleports away.
Oh, awesome. Um, that's fantastic. I'm very excited to see this in action and play with it. At this point, while we're recording, I know nothing about how the animations look or what the kits are, but I'm very hyped to see what that looks like. Um, would you be able to tease something about what the team is? Not necessarily the other characters, but the function or what they're gonna do or what they're called
Yeah,
even.
yeah, and so they're going to be joining a team called Spider Society, and so there's two other characters that will probably be revealing and showing later. But I can talk about the two reworks. Is going to be Ghost Spider and then also Spider-Man Noir.
Ooh.
The really interesting thing I'm really excited for this team is they're actually a skill raids team. All of these characters are going to be dual origins, and so we're going to be adding the skill tags of both Ghost Spider and Spider-Man Noir. Um, and what Peter B. Parker does is he is like the mentor of the team. He gives assists nows, things like that, and so like all of his mechanics, kind of make you feel like he is the mentor to the team.
Oh, that's sweet. Like a Jubilee character, like the central. I love that. I'm very hyped to see it, and I'm really really happy to hear that we're opening the door again for dual tags. That's great to hear.
Yeah, it's something that we've done like a few times. We keep it really close to our chest because of whenever there's things that, if there's an event going on that requires one or two traits, like you can always double dip sometimes. And so it's something we hold close to our chest, but we are really excited to do this Spider Society team.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. Spider Society, we recently, or I guess we saw it a year ago in Across the Spider-Verse, and this year they were supposed to return around this time actually, but the movie got moved, and so I've noticed recently, like with the Marvels, Loki season 2, uh, this movie, you guys have been starting to stick to your guns, whereas like what with Black Widow, it kind of got pushed around. How do you guys navigate when a tie-in uh, gets rescheduled?
Yeah, so that's always a conversation we are having with Marvel. We sometimes pick characters that, like, even if the movie moves, it can still make sense with our story, what we want to do with the teams and everything that we're selling or that we're, working towards. And so sometimes it's fine when we're like, oh, this movie moves, it feels good, we can still keep this. Black Widow was one where it's like that movie moved, and it's like, okay, well then let's see where we can massage and put this in and move this character down. And so each time, I'm always sad when a movie gets delayed, but a lot of times it makes for a better experience. It's getting delayed for a reason. And so if we're playing far enough out, we're like, oh, maybe it makes sense moving things around. But if we already have a really good narrative and we've talked to Marvel and we're like, hey, yeah. And then it gives us an opportunity. If this movie gets delayed far enough in advance, I'm like, well, we can have another tie-in. We can look at doing some villains next time or heroes the next time and stuff like that. So it gives us some freedom. Sometimes, and other times we're like, oh, let's roll with it. We'll do marketing when the movie does come out, and maybe we can have a costume tied to it.
Which I'm very happy you guys do that, because if you had waited for the Craven movie, we wouldn't have gotten that amazing Sinister Six release, and that I think has been universally beloved. But on the topic of Sinister Six, I'm gonna ask you who your favorite Spider-Man villain is.
I think everyone's expecting me to say Swarm. He became like a mainstay Spider-Man villain. I do love that dumb bee person, and every time he gets beat up, I'm happy. But because I love Peter Parker so much, the villain does the most like psychological and physical damage to him is always classic Green Goblin. Norman Osborn as Green Goblin. Every time he's on the page, you don't know what to expect, what he's going to do, how he's going to torture Peter. And so that is definitely my favorite Spider-Man villain.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, definitely a very classic one, and I love the way you guys re-realized him in the game. So like we got the Ultimate Green Goblin before, and my favorite Spider-Man villain is actually from his team or that movie. I loved Olivia Octavius. I thought that one was just like a beautiful design. The way she like pulled her hair up to look like an octopus, it all like worked for me. And Catherine Hahn did a great job. So that's my favorite villain.
I definitely love that version of that villain. We definitely we looked into doing her at one point and decided to do the standard Doc Ock when we released her. But we did talk to community and talk to internally and decided which one we wanted to do. So hopefully, who knows in the future. Yeah. But I definitely love that design too.
Yeah, maybe later with like a Prowler or something. But right now I'm very happy with the Sinisters we have. What that like on the topic of like Sinisters, and that was a big team. When you are looking at a movie or just a team that you're building, how do you guys decide which member gets to be a controller, which becomes a brawler, blaster? So for example, when we look at Spider-Man or Ghost Spider and Gwenom, Spider-Man and Gwenom are brawlers, but Ghost Spider is a controller. Like, how do those decisions get made? I've always been fascinated with that.
Yeah, so we have a lot. All balancers talk with other designers. We kind of brainstorm on like who is the crux of this kit. Like a lot of the times, if you're reading like, oh, what would Peter Parker be? Depending on who you're reading or what arc, you're like, oh, it makes sense. He's a controller. He uses all of his webs. If you watch the 90s Spider-Man animated show, he punches very little people due to censorship. So I'm like, oh, it makes sense if he was a controller. Other times he's really brawlery and really punching people and getting that strength across. So it's mainly of like, what version of the character are we leaning into? What do we think their like attitude would be? What are their kits what would their kits want to be. And so like for Spider Society, when the first one did with Peter B. Parker, I was like, he's the mentor, he's the support, he is the one that's bringing the team together.
Awesome. Yeah. From what you mentioned, I figured maybe he sounds like a support, but every now and then we get a curveball, so that's good to know. Um, so now that we're talking a bit more about the character and team development, which part of that process do you enjoy the most? Um, because we've seen like concept sketches or concept animations, but we're also, I'm sure you guys go through a lot of different stages, and I'm
Yeah,
curious.
the thing that always gets me excited is the brainstorm. Like I'll work on the character schedule, I'll work with stakeholders on the game, and some of our most engaged players that are on the team. And we'll like, oh, we want these versions of the characters, and then we'll go into the brainstorm, and people will throw out like, oh, have you read these comics? Have you looked at what he can do? And
Hmm.
you get really fun, exciting things, and then we are like, okay, what can we actually action on? And we'll go and talk to the technical artists and be like, hey, can you do this? And a lot of the times you're like, they're insane, you're crazy, like no, we can't do this. And then come back and like, okay, I looked into it and we can get a dog in the game. And I'm like, yes, that's how I got Cosmo. And I was like, I want this dog. I'm gonna go and badger our tech artists until they finally like, okay, we can really manipulate the Rocket Raccoon's rig and get Cosmo to work.
That's awesome. It's some of the things you guys achieve is just so mind blowing. I love sometimes you guys are like basically recreate movie scenes, especially when I first started. That's kind of what made me fall in love with the game. I was actually watching the whole Defenders series at that time, so like and by at that time the roster was kind of small, so I was playing the game at 1x speed, and I was seeing like Daredevil do all these things. It was literally like watching the show, and I just loved it. Um,
I mean, it's always really fun. There's a lot of characters where we're like, oh, let's get some references, and you'll pull up straight animations from movies, TV shows, and then seeing the animator like pull that into our style, but also have like a nice reference to that. Like it feels good. And every now and then I'll see on Reddit be like, hey, did someone see this? And I'm like, they got it. They got that connection.
yeah. Oh yeah, we get the connection, and let me tell you, for some reason it doesn't get said enough, but like animations are just mind blowing in the game, especially when you guys try new things where like Nightcrawler comes towards the camera, or Ironheart Mark II changes her POV. All of that stuff gets noticed, and it's beautiful. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I am always blown away by our animators. They'll try something new that we haven't done before, and everyone's like, "Oh my, that looks so good." So like, yeah, both of those examples, Penny, you're gonna see one of the future characters. They did something different with their ultimate, and it feels real good. So I'm really excited.
Oh, I'm hyped. Now I'm excited to see that playtest. um, so we talked about movies and pulling reference. What's your favorite Spider-Man movie, or show? Any type of content.
I'm probably gonna say No Way Home. Like to me, that was the epitome. It felt like Endgame, where it pulls everything together, everything you've been waiting for. So you got all the Tobey Maguire movies, you got the Andrew Garfield movies, all into this. And that version of Tom Holland, I think, is probably my favorite Peter Parker, and so it really feels great. Like that culmination felt like, oh, this is just Spider-Man's Endgame, is how I saw it. So definitely that, and then I love the animated series Spider-Man. Like going back and watching them Disney Plus every now and then, like those cartoons still hold up.
Oh yeah, yeah. I grew up watching that cartoon too, and there's been a lot of Spider-Man content. I think I might be between the first animated across the into the Spider Verse. The names get confused. When you said No
Yeah.
Way Home, in my head I was like mathing. Is it No Way Home, Far From Home, with the Mysterio one? But no.
Homecoming. Which one is this?
So it's between that one and Homecoming for me actually. I really loved how they realized Vulture in live action. So
Yeah,
those two
like
movies are like up there for me.
yeah, they took a B, maybe C list villain, Vulture, who was like, oh, he gets beat up. He's this old guy, um, and they made him terrifying.
Oh
Like
yeah.
when Peter's fighting him on the jet, like you're super scared for Peter. Like he is an actual beast in that movie. So I really do love how they re-envisioned Vulture.
Yes, and Michael Keaton was all in. I loved it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, Speaking of vultures, I loved the vulture in Across the Spider Verse, like the Renaissance vulture. So
yeah.
if you're looking to expand your out of time team or anything, there's suggestions.
I mean, he was incredible.
Yeah, it was a
So
cool design. I thought.
yeah, definitely. I want to see more from that universe too. I'm like, show me the rest.
I would agree. Yeah, a Doc Ock from like a Da Vinci era could be pretty uh, interesting.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Across the Spider Verse introduced a concept. Before I go, I want to ask you this, and if maybe you don't have an answer for me, but in the infinite multiverse, in all the match sheets what is their canon event? What makes a match sheets a match sheet?
I think it's going to sound a little corny, but putting on a Hawaiian shirt. I don't know if you guys have. I do a lot of interviews. I'm almost always wearing Hawaiian shirts. They make me happy. They're colorful, has flowers, and yeah. And so I think that's it. I remember like I had to go and buy work clothes for a job I was working at insurance years ago. And I really didn't want to be stuffy, and the only requirement was button down. So I was like, oh hey, look at these. And it just made me happy. So now I've incorporated my normal wardrobe. And so my wife always makes fun of me, but she was the one that pushed us. Like when I got married, I wore a Hawaiian shirt under my suit, and she's the one that pushed for it because she's like, "That's you." So it's definitely, I think, the Hawaiian shirt.
Wow, that's so bright and cheerful. I love it. Well, Matt, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. Uh, I'm very happy, and thank you overall to Lorie and the MSF Envoy program. This has been great. I really appreciate your time. Yeah, thank you for doing this with me.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to do it. One thing I do want to, say is like thank you to you guys for making content. Thank you for your fans and your community. Yeah, and then I guess one thing I wanted to say is in the next release, we're going to be expanding the Spider-Verse tag a little bit. And so Spider-Woman will be getting the Spider-Verse tag. It's definitely something that's been asked by a lot of fans and fought internally. Because when she was created, she wasn't originally Spider-Verse, but she's been folded into that meta now. So in the upcoming release, she'll be getting that tag.
Oh, that's awesome. I was going to ask that to you after we stopped recording. Thank you for that fantastic final bit of tidbit news. I appreciate it. Chat, I'll see you in the next one.